Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. And after a rocky start for new Celtic manager Wilfried Nancy, there's a lot of different opinions flying around right now. Some people optimistic and patient with what we need to do going forward. Some people already pressing the panic button after defeat to Hearts on Sunday. So there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of different emotions. What's a better way than to try and bring everybody together at this time of desperate need and peril? A tier list. A tier list, methinks. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Thank you all so much for the support you've shown through this whole long and drawn out process of Celtic appointing a new manager. We have now finally arrived in the new era, and content should be back to normal sort of starting now. The manic mayhem of it all should be behind us, and hopefully the results will start to fall in line with the normality of the situation. Today we're going to do a wee tier list. I'm going to quickly explain what the purpose of it is. Now I want to get tore into things, but I feel like there has to be a little context as to why I've chose this as my video for the day, as why I'm doing this as my piece of content, because it feels maybe a little bit premature, all things considered. But I done my deep dive last night on the channel. If you haven't seen it, we done a 45-50 minute live stream discussing Sunday in great depth, where I made all my thoughts perfectly clear about the first game of the Wilfried Nancy era. Wilfried himself wasn't perfect, I think we can all acknowledge that, but I do think there has been a over-the-top sort of blown out of proportion reaction to the defeat to Hearts this past Sunday. And I think most of it is blown out of proportion because this current Celtic squad is not good enough. And I know I'm in danger of sounding repetitive as I say that week after week on this channel, but I do truly believe this Celtic squad is just so far off the standard required that any manager who was going to be trusted to come in and deploy his own system and change the culture at Celtic was going to struggle with this team. In fact, in my opinion, I think the rebuild job we have on our hands right now could be matched with the rebuild job that we had on our hands in the summer of 2021. If not, it could be worse. And I know a lot of people might not agree with that, but I feel like that's the severity of the situation we find ourselves in. And I feel sorry for any manager, and of course now Wilfried Nancy that has to come in and inherit this group of players. There are some great players in there, and there's a lot of players in there as well who just need a little bit of a kick up the backside to get the best out of them. But there's also a good few of them that probably shouldn't be here for the new era. Things have gotten a little stale, things have got concerningly bad at points, and there are some players in the squad who I just genuinely feel like don't want to be here. So I think now, more than ever, is probably time to evaluate where they fall in the pecking order in relation to this new era that's about to begin. I also think it's important to acknowledge that Wilfried Nancy isn't going to work miracles over the next couple of transfer windows. And that's mostly down to the fact that the people at the top of the club and the people who make the signings and handle recruitment are just not good enough, evidently not good enough at their jobs. And there's no guarantee that he will start signing players that will mean we can just move people on. You've got to be realistic. However, today's video is just me talking in my hypothetical best case scenario. Players that I would move on and players that I would keep over the next couple of transfer windows as Wilfried Nancy looks to build his own Celtic side. I think it's time to try and destroy any sort of connection that's been there over the last 2, 3, 4 years at Celtic, and it's time to move on. Unless they're good enough to stay here, because it's a new era. And it's time for freshness, and we need that all over the park. I do acknowledge that in January we probably won't get that much done, but I think these next 2 transfer windows for Celtic are pivotal. And Wilfried Nancy has a few months to try and get the best out of these players. And when I do this tier list now, I'll revisit it at the end of the season, and maybe we'll change our tune on some of the players. Maybe Wilfried Nancy will find the best out of some of these players. But at this current point, I'm going to talk about who I think should be here for the project. Because there's just plenty of them that I don't think should. So it's time to go over to my handy tier list, my favourite type of video. And we're going to discuss everybody who's involved with the senior squad at Celtic, including those who are set to return from loan deals over the next couple of transfer windows. I'm going to organise the squad into 5 very straightforward categories, and 2 will be used more than the other 3 in the middle. It's simply keep or time to go. I think most of these players in this 30-man squad or whatever it is will either fall into one of those two categories. It's either straightforward, keep them because they're good enough and we need them, or it's time to move them on. But I have got 3 categories in the middle, one being it's convenient to keep them. I think that will apply to a few of the Scottish trained players and the club trained players that help with European registration. We've got the hard to justify category for the players that some people might want to see stay around, but it's just getting really hard to justify at this point. And then finally, the middle category, which I think might be the most damning of them all. I just don't care anymore. There's some players who I'm just fed up talking about. And there's some players that if they stay or go, do you know what? It doesn't bother me because I am numb. So that is my basis for evaluation on this current Celtic squad. And hopefully everybody can fall into one of those categories very easily. And I think most of them will. So, like and subscribe. Let's get into this. So Austin Trusty kicks us off. And I think this season he's proven that he's someone who's very valuable to keep around. Whatever his role might be moving forward, whether that's first team starter or squad depth player. Austin Trusty's been marvellous, I think, since coming into the Celtic squad. Not perfect by any stretch, there's been mistakes, and that's obviously natural when you consider how poor we've been playing across the majority of games this season, but I think he's done a good job in reassuring Celtic fans. He's worth keeping around. I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's got more to offer, decent age as well. Yeah, it's a straightforward keep for me with Austin Trusty. Not so straightforward as the situation with Marcelo Sirachi, because up until a few weeks ago, I think it was pretty unanimous amongst the Celtic support that he was a definite keep. But now people seem to be worried that he could be injury prone and it might not be worth our while keeping him around if he's just going to keep getting injured. My response to that is, it is only 2 injuries and they've been rather unfortunate. I still think that I'd keep him up here for now. Now, that could change between now and the end of the season if it just keeps happening, if he keeps returning and getting injured again. But honestly, I'd really like the look of Sirachi. I have a feeling that he would fit brilliantly into the system that Wilfried Nancy wants to use. If he was on the left-hand side of the pitch at the weekend, I think we would have had a lot more joy than what we did with Sebastian Tenekte. So, for now, I'm keeping him in keep. But that's, further evaluation needed. I think Colby Donovan could fall into any of the 2 top categories because I still think there's a lot of development to go with him. I think he's got a long way to go until he's, proven as a reliable player at Celtic. But I'm going to put him in keep just because I like the initial signs. There has been games where he struggled, but that's part and parcel with being a young player coming through the system at Celtic. He's still a keep for me right now, and of course he does help with that European registration. We're off to a flyer here. We're making the squad look great. Vinny Sinsalo, keep, absolutely. I mean, he's potentially Celtic's next number 1. I actually want to see more of Vinny Sinsalo. There's not an awful lot you can say about a backup goalkeeper, but from what we've seen of him, he looks like he could be a great use for us, a great useful player for Celtic in the years to come. So he's in keep. And also Kieran Tierney as well. Kieran Tierney is one of those guys that, despite the struggles that he's went through this season, no matter what happens, he's going to stay anyway. So even if you're weirdly in a camp where you would just cut your losses with Tierney, it's just not going to happen anyway. I don't think there is anybody that's in that camp, but Kieran Tierney will hopefully get through these struggles, come out the other side of it better. I also feel like that playing in the left side of a back three will help him big time too, but we'll just need to wait and see what happens with that. Tierney is still very much, obviously, a keep. Ross Doohan, let's just put him in, it's convenient. I mean, if he went or stayed, it wouldn't really matter, but the most important thing is he helps contribute to that European registration. He was trained at the club, and he was trained in the nations, so that always helps, but I don't think anybody would be crying if Ross Doohan was suddenly let go in the summer. He is quite literally the new Scott Bain of these tier lists, and that's all there is to be said. And let's finish off with maybe the most obvious keep so far, Alistair Johnston, who goes flying to the top of this list. In fact, if you were to put it in order, I'd probably leave things looking a little bit like this right now. Johnston, yeah, I mean, injuries, annoying, very, very annoying, but it's Alistair Johnston, and we know how different we look without him in the side. It's really, really bad not having him around. I can't wait for him to be back. I mean, we talk about him as a potential next Celtic captain, for goodness sake. Alistair Johnston is at the top of the pile right now, and I don't think many would argue that. Right, this is where we start to kind of get talking a little bit. And I'm going to start with Kasper Schmeichel. I am going to be perfectly honest, it's probably time to go. I'll move him up to hard to justify, because I still think that there's conversation to be had there where you could say if Schmeichel was happy to be a backup or to be a number 2, then keep him around. But he shouldn't be keeping Vinny Sansalo out the number 1 spot for much longer, in my opinion. I love Kasper Schmeichel, but the guy's, nearly 40? I actually think he might chuck it after the World Cup for what it's worth. We're not hearing any rumours as to him signing another year extension on top of his current deal. Realistically, he probably is going to be in there. It's time to go. I think he'll just want to go. I think he's probably about to call it a day. He's not the same Kasper Schmeichel as he was even a year ago. So maybe he wants to go before that starts to decline even further. The World Cup would be the perfect stage for him to finish off if Denmark qualify. Yeah, I'm just going to be honest with it. I'm going to put him in It's Time to Go. I love him so much and I appreciate what he's done since coming into the club, but it's probably time to start moving on. Dane Murray's in that same bracket as Ross Doohan. It's convenient. Dane Murray isn't a young lad anymore. He's not 18, 19. He's not somebody that we look at with bags of potential. We kind of know what Dane Murray is now. And I think a lot of people will tell you it's probably not good enough. But there's glimpses, there's been moments where he does look good. He's got that physicality to his game. He's obviously got the advantage of being a homegrown player as well. But it's more out of convenience than anything, if we're telling the truth. I think when Dane Murray's on a starting 11 team sheet, the same things are said by most supporters. And he's somebody who I hope can get better. But have we seen as far as it's going to go? Maybe. It's out of convenience. Balikwisha. You spent 5 million on him in the summer, and he's barely kicked a ball. We're now on to our third manager that hasn't given him a sniff. Now, don't get me wrong, 1 game is all Nancy's been here for. I wouldn't use that as the basis to suggest he's not going to get a sniff. But I think it speaks volumes. It's probably going to be hard to justify keeping him around if things keep going like this. Which is a shame, because I was all in on Balikwisha. I thought he'd be a great signing. His stats at Antwerp suggested we were going to get a decent enough player, but Brendan didn't fancy him. Martin O'Neill didn't fancy him. What else can you really say? Do you just cut your losses and make whatever money you can on him instead of dragging out some saga like we have with so many players over the last few years? I think it'll be hard to find him a move, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to justify keeping him around right now. Once again, maybe evaluate this a little bit clearer at the end of the season. Scalesy. This is obviously one that splits opinion, and I think there's still a lot of people out there who believe Scales isn't good enough. I still think we should be looking to improve in every area of the squad, and I don't think anybody's position in the team is safe, but I still would keep him around. Like, 100%. I would still keep him around, even if that's as a second choice centre-half, even if he's on the bench every week. At this moment in time, I would. I've never been Scales' biggest fan. But until we're in a better situation with centre-halves, I can't really say it's time to ship him and get rid of him. I'm just going to be keeping it real with it right now. Yeah, I want better players in this team, and I think there's better players out there than Liam Scales. But for now, I would keep him around. Here's one of the hardest. Benjamin Nygren. I think that I might be one of the only last people on earth that will be keeping him up here within the boundaries of the keep column. But it is very, very marginally. Like, the only reason I'm keeping him up there from now and not saying hard to justify is because at least he has got some goal contributions. And without his goal contributions this season, God knows where we'd be. Doesn't mean he's been good. He hasn't been. He's been really, really poor. And I think most fans can see that. But there is still something there to suggest that Nygren has use for now, and there is potential to tap into. But if we don't start tapping into it soon, he's going to be down with Balikwisha. The only difference between them right now is the fact that we see Nygren a lot and we don't see Balikwisha at all. But he's not offering much to us on the pitch in terms of overall quality. And it's all very well and good scoring a tap in now and then, but you need to be good for Celtic. You need to be scoring and playing well for Celtic over a consistent basis. Not tap-ins every now and then. He's very marginally in that keep column for now. Let's go through a few of them rapid fire, because there is 3 coming up that I think are very, very obvious. Number 1, Callum McGregor, who I think goes straight into the keep column. Number 2, Cameron Carter-Vickers, who I think goes straight into the keep column. And number 3, Arne Engels, who I think also goes straight into the keep column. Now, I know there's going to be people that will be saying, oh, Vickers is always injured, it's time to get rid of him. I hear that, and you know what? I respect your opinion on that. If you think it's time to let go of Vickers and it's time to say that chapter's done, cool. But I really think you'll regret it once he's away, because when he is fit and when he's playing, which over this last 5 years since he signed has been more often than he's been injured, he's been a colossus. And he's going to be really tough to replace. So I have him in my personal keeping. And keep in mind, this chart, this video is all my opinion. I would be keeping Vickers around. Once again, with the acknowledgement that I said around Liam Scales, that I would consistently like Celtic to look for better. As months and days go by, I want Celtic to be constantly and consistently looking at ways to make this team better, so that we can phase out injury-prone players or players that aren't good enough. But Vickers, for me, when fit, is a no-brainer. Engels, he's been improving. McGregor, he's the captain that obviously keeps. I know they've had a lot of criticisms around their game this season, but they're more positive than negative as Celtic players. They go straight up there. I don't think it's much of a discussion. It's time to go. It's time to go. You know what channel you're on. You know my opinions. I'm not even going to try. And I'm not going to do the whole entertaining the moments of brilliance. No, it's time. It's done. It's over. He's shite. He's in this column. He's in there. It's hard to justify anymore. And I know that breaks a lot of people's hearts, including mine. But every time he gets a chance, he doesn't take it. And I think the only defence I can give him in that regard is that these sporadic chances don't help football players. You need to be getting consistent chances. You need to be getting, back-to-back games to really make an impact. But Bernardo's been given the odd game here and there, and he's went and disappeared in them. So it's getting hard to justify. And for the sake of his own career, he's probably thinking it's time I leave Celtic. If I was to take a stab in the dark or a guess at it, yeah, I love him. I'd love it to work. I don't think it's going to. So he's down there. Let's hit through another few rapid fire here. It's time to go. I know he's got the Scottish registration, and I know that he's a club-trained player, and I know that it's Tony Ralston who gives it his all for Celtic. I'm done. I actually should probably just have him in the just don't care anymore. I've become numb to it all. It's time to go. It's time to go. Far below the standards required. It's 2026 in a matter of weeks. Move on. Ladies and gentlemen, move on. Forrest, and this one's for very different reasons. Yep, it's time to go. James Forrest's footballing career, let alone Celtic career, is probably coming to an end. Martin O'Neill didn't use him at all, which I was actually a bit surprised at, because I thought Martin O'Neill would have liked him and would have maybe given him a shot. I think we all know that James's legs are gone and that his career is probably petering out. And this is the last year of his contract, so it just makes sense. And he'll go with the love of everybody. But it's for very different reasons. Yep, it's time to move on from that chapter as well. And then finally here, I just don't care. I'm not even going to get dragged into it. You're mad at this, you're mad at that. Oh, I think there's a player there. I haven't seen anything to suggest there's a player there. And 2 managers in a row have now left him out of squads completely. He scored 1 goal last season before coming to Celtic. I don't think there's any indications to suggest that there's a player in there. I just don't care anymore. I don't. Do you know what? Do you know who goes in there as well? Inamura. He played well in a friendly. Should be getting more chances. Well, he's not. Martin O'Neill didn't give him chances. So I just don't care. If they stay, they stay. If they go, they go. I'm bored. I'm bored having the same conversations about the pair of them. They should never have been signed in the first place. And that's just my 2 cents. Which now brings us to some of the players who I think have the most conversation around them. And I said I wanted to keep this video concise, and I wanted to keep it to a viewable length. We might have to take some time over the majority of these players. We'll start with Luke McCowan, who I think is probably up in this it's convenient stage for me. I would keep him around, personally. But I think we are seeing limitations in his game. I really like Luke McCowan. I really do. But I can like a player with also acknowledging if they're the standard required or not. And sometimes I watch Luke McCowan and go, yep, maybe not going to be good enough. But I will caveat that by saying he was deployed on the wing quite a bit under Martin O'Neill. It wasn't working. I think it made him look worse than he actually is. I think that McCowan was a signing of convenience, it felt like. I don't think anybody at Celtic signed McCowan because he was this great player and he was going to really improve the squad. I think it was a signing of convenience. Let's be real about it. Celtic very rarely sign players from the likes of Dundee. So I think he's a player of convenience, to be honest, and that's where he sits in this list for me. Rio Hatate, I think I've been very vocal on his situation all season. I'm going to give him the credit of moving him up from its time to go, because I thought Martin O'Neill started to get a lot of the old Rio Hatate back out, but I am done with the whole plays well once every 10 games. I don't think that makes you a good footballer. I think to be a good footballer you need to be playing well 7 out of 10 games, 8 out of 10 games, not 1 out of 10. And that's what we get with Rio Hatate, and that's what we've got with him for the last 2 or 3 years. So I think it's getting hard to justify. And I'm going to put his partner in crime with him, the man who I do love so much deep down, but I am at my wit's end with, Daisen Maeda. It's getting hard to justify. And if you watched my live stream last night, you will have heard a lot of what... No, do you know what? Actually, he's not in the same boat as Hatate. Daisen Maeda has been on the public record saying that he wanted to leave the club, that he was disappointed he wasn't let to leave the club. He wants to go. He doesn't want to be here. Whereas we haven't had that from Rio Hatate. You know, Rio Hatate actually came out in the summer and said he wants to be remembered for the trophies he wins and stuff like that, which kind of indicated, alright, maybe he's fine being here. Maeda, complete opposite. He's clearly gutted that he didn't get to go. He hasn't applied himself in the same way he did last season, and he's cost us more than he's given us this year. It's time for Maeda to go. It's time to let him get the move that he wants. He clearly doesn't want to stay at the club. So I think he's in a different boat from Hatate. Hatate, it's getting hard to justify for me, but with Maeda, I would love him to pick up his form and stay here. Of course I would. I would give anything for it. But I don't think that's going to happen. Because the most important thing is, he wants to go. Iheanacho is in this it's time to go bracket as well. Shouldn't even have been signed in the first place. Just doesn't look up to the standards that we need. I liked moments of Iheanacho when he first signed. But listen, he's the same boat as Tenecti for me in the sense that none of them were meant to be Celtic players. They were panic buys at the last minute. You know? Iheanacho shouldn't even be here to begin with. So, it's time to go. Stephen Welsh, it's time to go. I actually can't believe it's nearly 2026 and I'm talking about whether Stephen Welsh should be a Celtic player or not. Is it just me? Is it just nuts? He's coming back from his low and he's apparently done quite well at Motherwell, actually. I get to see Motherwell on a limited basis. You can only take so much by watching Sports Scene. But he's been good for him. Good for him. Move to them permanently and keep it going, son. Do the best for your career. You deserve to have a good career. It's just not going to be at Celtic. I think we all know that by now. I think there's another couple of players like that are returning from loans. Let me get them done and out the way. Nawrocki and Odin Thiago Holm. I'm not wanting to hear it about Nawrocki. Don't give me it in the comments. Oh, but he looked good in those 2 games that Rodgers played him in last year. Is that what the standards have fallen to? Guys that look good in the odd game and guys that can't get a fucking appearance for Hanover in the 2nd division of German football. Is that where we're letting the standards slip to? This is the problem. We're too busy obsessing over players that looked good once or twice in games that didn't matter, or players that give it their all every time they're on the pitch. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'd give it my all. Giving it your all sometimes just isn't enough. And there's a reason why Nawrocki probably isn't getting a game in the 2nd division of German football, or wasn't getting a game at Celtic. And Odin Thiago Holm is just a whole mystery in itself. Do you know what? Actually, I'm going to put Nawrocki up there. I just don't care. I'm fed up talking about it. Holm, on the other hand, it's probably time to let him go. It's not worked for him at LAFC. I think there's been some injuries and stuff. They said he wants it to work at Celtic, but I just don't think it will. There's only a couple of more definite keeps in here for me. Callum Osmond, definitely. I would keep around. I'd actually move him quite higher up the list. I really like the look of what we saw with Osmond. It's just a shame that he picked up a big injury. So I hope he comes back and he offers that same version of himself that we've seen just before the knock. And Jota is quite obviously a keep as well. I mean, we're in a bad situation with him with the severity of the injury, and we don't know how he'll be once he comes back from it. But let's be real, over the next 2 transfer windows, nobody's going to be looking to ship off Jota. So I can't wait to have him back. We miss him. We miss him so badly. It's a massive keep, obviously. Which brings me to the final 3 players, and maybe I've constructed it to be the final 3 players. I don't know. It doesn't feel deliberate, but it almost does feel deliberate. Johnny Kenny, do you know what? I'm going to put him right at the bottom of keep for now. Just because I think there's a lot of work that needs done there, and I don't know if he is the level required, but I do like him. I like something about him. I would maybe try and loan him out. But once again, he's similar to that situation with Dane Murray. He's not a young lad anymore. He's not 18, 19, 20. Like, this is a guy that's at the stage of his career where he should be starting every week for a team. And I don't think he's the standard required to be a starter for Celtic every week just yet. But there's just something about Kenny that I really want to work. And maybe he just needs a loan move, consistent minutes, and something to happen to then come back and be in a situation where he starts for Celtic. I don't know. I'm putting him up there just now, but with the caveat of it being not something I'm overly sure on. Yeah, and Palma, I'm putting him in this bracket as well. It's kind of torn between the two. I don't care. Are we going to pretend that Palma has it in him? Or are we actually going to admit that basically every time we've seen him, he's been shite, apart from that opening month or two when he signed? Apparently, the difference is, apparently he's been doing pretty well at Poznan in Poland, to the point where I think they'd love to keep him. Don't know if they'd be able to afford them. And there's been rumours that Nancy wants to bring him back. Don't know where they've came from. Don't know if there's any legitimacy in them. But I just don't care anymore. I don't. He is in that bracket with Mike Nawrowski where I'm like, are the standards just players that showed a moment of brilliance once? I don't know if we can keep hanging on to things like that. So I just don't care. And finally, we have Seb Tanecki, who, because he's last, I'm sure some of you might be expecting me to shove him in the bottom end of this, but I will put him up to the top for now in the keep category, because he's raw, he's young, and there's definitely coaching that can be done there to make him a better player. But it does need to happen over this I'd say the next 18 months for Sebastian Tanecki are vital. And if we don't see a massive improvement in him between now and maybe the end of next season, probably need to admit that it's time to cut our losses. I'm not full of faith we'll get that polished player out there, but I'm not going to give up on it just yet. A few rocky months when Celtic have been generally poor doesn't mean we should write him off completely, but I am starting to fear that we're in a situation where there's a reason why it was a panic signing. So I've got him in keep for now, but it's with a lot of scrutiny and a lot of watching to be done to see if he can come any good. So this is what I think the Celtic squad should look like come the summer next year, which I once again need to reiterate the point is utterly ridiculous, because how many have I got here? I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I've got a squad size of like 18 here. Which, do you know what? I'd love if Celtic narrowed this squad down to a size of 18 and then Wilfried Nancy was allowed to go out and sign 8 or 9 players to buff up the squad that were his players. I'd much rather that than this kind of pockets of changes that we kind of go through. I would much rather just go through a full-on renovation. Whether we get that or not, and whether that's in the realms of realistic possibilities, I think is a completely different question. But I genuinely do feel that these are the only 18 players that I'd be happy keeping around. And a couple of them do have massive asterisk marks beside their name that I've spoken about. And some of them aren't exactly first team quality right now. Like, even ones that I really like Callum Osmond. He isn't exactly like the finished article. He isn't exactly the guy that should be leading the line for Celtic as of right now. So that's 18 players with an asterisk beside it. However, this for me is like the dead wood and players that just need to go. So I think that this Wilfried Nancy era really doesn't start until we see a more Wilfried Nancy orientated squad that involves the players that we should be keeping around and gets rid of the players that need to go. There's work to be done, and I think all just comes back to the point that I raised after the game on Sunday. We need to be patient. Ultimately, not everyone is going to be patient. I understand that. I really do. And I understand that not everybody's going to agree with my assessments of each of these players. It's an opinionated video. But that is why I'm willing to kind of stand with the manager for the next few months to try and get this right, because I understand that the kind of hard job he's got in his hands working with a group of players that is so below par, I think. There you go. That's it. That's my assessment of the current Celtic squad as of right now and who should stay and who should go. We will revisit this in May and we'll talk about it then. So until tomorrow, until then, until Thursday, whatever day I'm next on, take care of yourself. God bless. I'll see you next time.